Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John's Reporters for the 14th of August. And, well, we dipped below the 50%, but caught a little bit of action, started to move back above it. That caused green over cyan, which is something we were looking at for the continuation. Shakeout had been improving, so there wasn't a problem there. And we may even get cyan below red, which would be dramatic, but you can see that we crossed 13.5 at the same time you get the green crossover. That's powerful. It was enough to shift it. Of course, they're all going to say that it was the delay in tariffs and that, but that's still a prospect. So that more have been made more hype than anything. All we're doing is getting back into the same previous range. Without more, at least from a increase in steel and a maintaining of this, you got to watch out for any pivots down. We're going to see it on the 50K first. From a 5K standpoint, this turned out to be a good short here right at the close, which is what I ended up doing because from a short-term play, it was a reasonable call. From the NQ standpoint, looking almost identical. Everything's pretty consistent there. I think it's just a little bit softer from a steel standpoint, which isn't horrible or anything. And of course, that bullishness for the U.S. caused the euro to have just a little bit of a dip, but it's not really much. This is just all consolidation going in here, really getting quite compressed. It's in the weak side given what we're seeing here. We may even see a little bit more weakness now if you get that steel coming across cyan, even though it's still rising. It's got to make a dip lower in order for it to do. But you can notice there's no movement in the red DOC. That shows you there's some serious support hanging in there. So, worth noting. Oil made a nice bounce. This is just pretty much the same range we've been in, so it's not really too dramatic. It was coming off that super oversold. We had the orange dip there, and so it was well within our expectations. Gold is still going to maintain a bid. There was a little bit of a back and forth sell-off. You're going to get that within this kind of configuration, but you're still at that, 6.89 for a red DOC. That's pretty up there. It's going to take a little more for that to kind of break down. It was kind of a back and forth sort of pivot for the day. Let me shrink it back. Because we had the previous giant run, we had some short signals going in between there, and that's where it started to level out and just pretty much consolidate within that general range. And we were just kind of like bouncing back and forth. We had some nice little pivots. Some of them were a little bit weak coming off of the, cross of the steel here with no reset. And you couldn't even get orange below. That doesn't happen until, though, you're breaking the 7.5 right at the 23%. So it's one of those where it looked like it's going to do something, doesn't quite do anything, and then finally you get the breakout, and it happens to be right around the 23. Now this turned blue because we did get the green above cyan. It spidered pretty fast right there, but we had nice continuation with the shakeout readings right there. So from my standpoint, it was a good cover. I was waiting a little bit to show some strength before I went and bought that, and it ended up going fairly decent. And then here's what I was talking about from a short standpoint. We were coming across with a lot of just back and forth sketchiness, and then we ended up with DOC spread took place right here. Still had rising red at that point. The steel hadn't quite dipped below. What was my entry? I think it was a little early in there. I was in at the 31 level, so that was a little earlier than the overall signal, simply because we had the meeting of Azure gold flattened completely at that particular point, and we were just above the 50, so I wanted to be right at that with the ABM yellow as well. It was right at 30.50, so it was like, okay, below that I'm going to be short. And then boom, the DOC spread just started, and once it started, it was like, okay, I can let that one go. Now just above the 38% from a stop standpoint, and that will continue to decline or unless we get a new signal, but this is nothing so far, so far so good. Just leave it there and just keep playing it back and forth. When you get such a big move, you can have as much as a third to a half retrace. This is something we've talked about before, so not anything to get overly excited about on the early dip, because There's plenty of positive extremes that we're getting filled in. We have the 2905 is going to be an interesting one because I would imagine that's going to be the key level. And again, we've talked about this. This is between that 22 and 30 range where you really got to get solid close above it. And every time they get above it, they're just not able to quite sustain it. And that inability to sustain over that always pushes you back down towards these key 2905 and then back to the 2880. So that's where we're at for now. As always, though, trade well. I'll keep putting up relevant details on the Skype chat. Have a good one.